Hi, everyone. This is Mark Silverberg, and I'm here with, believe it or not, 5 O'Clock Shadow. Dan,
Hello.
Paul, Caleb, Judd, Scott, and John. How you guys doing?
Hey,
Awesome.
we're doing well.
Very cool,
Thanks
Mark.
for having us.
So I think your last album was 6, and that was almost like 10 years ago. What took you so long?
Well, actually, our last album wasn't 6. It was an album we titled Originals by Other People,
Oh,
which was entirely cover tunes.
Yeah.
okay.
Would tell you.
So you're for your last originals album. How's that?
That's correct.
Take that.
What took us so long, Paul?
Life got in the way.
Yeah.
We never really stopped doing what we're doing, but we just got bogged down in doing this gig or that gig. We recorded some stuff during the pandemic. That slowed us down a little bit. That's probably the biggest. Let's blame the pandemic.
Yeah. Pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. All
Thanks,
the momentum. Thanks, pandemic.
That's probably it.
Just think that's it.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, I heard Time. Time is brilliant. I have to say, what a way to come back, man.
Thank you so much.
This is great. I have so many questions. Time is obviously a concept album. So
Yeah.
tell me, for those who are uninitiated to your album, tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. So, Time, we're a band that's 33 years old. Now, none of us were in the band when it started, but I feel like there's just so much wisdom in this band from all the years that we've been doing this. And some of us have joined more recently, but still, it just carries on with the band. And I think we just carry all these stories and all these wisdom, and all those stories mean something. And so for me, like coming up with this idea of this album, it was more about like, okay, what are moments of life experience that we can talk about from our own perspective, and how can we tell that story, from beginning to end? It starts with, someone very young growing up in a place where they feel like there's more to life. Then there's young love. There's perseverance. There's heartbreak. There's losing someone. There's sort of this idea that this feeling that time is fleeting, that it's running out. And then there's a song that is written to those loved ones who you sing to or speak to after you leave this world. And it got really serious at that point. So at the very last minute, we wrote a song that's kind of a silly song about the end of the world.
Yeah.
And the world.
Hey,
the world
yeah.
Let's just be together and be friends. So yeah, it's just the idea was just this idea that there's so much, there's so many stories within this band, and I felt like a lot of those stories needed to be told through music.
So I'm going to invoke the Beatles, because you mentioned the Beatles in there's no songs on the radio. It actually kind of feels like the first half of this album is like Rubber Soul, and then the last half is like the White Album. It gets very experimental.
Yeah. Oh,
Is that
man.
on purpose, or is that just my interpretation?
I think that's your interpretation, and I think I speak for all of us when I say I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's because it does get, it starts off a little sing-songy, but then it gets really orchestral and a little psychedelic maybe.
Yeah.
I think we'd be lying if we didn't say that the Beatles are one of our biggest influences.
Absolutely.
Musically. I mean, how can they not be? They're probably the greatest rock band of all time.
I mean, there's a breakdown of the song that we call the Beatles section.
We do. There's a
Oh.
moment
In our song today, where it just goes into this sort of like guttural, just like awe thing that just like it's this assortment of just sound that just grows and grows and grows, and there's trumpets over it, and it just suddenly comes to this, and it's a departure from the song that we're in. Paul wrote the bridge, this Beatles section as we call it, and we just absolutely love it. I mean, there's a lot of Beatles moments. I talk about the Beatles in Nothing on the Radio, as you mentioned, Mark. But also the transition between coming through and nothing on the radio, that sort of like wall of sound where song overlapped on top of song, that for me was 100% just from listening to Beatles albums.
I mean, that was All You Need Is Love. That I just
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yes, exactly.
It's a George Martin moment. Yeah.
Really is. It really is. I have to say, 5 o'clock Shadow, you don't sound like anyone else. You are smooth but edgy. You're experimental but fun. Like there is no group, and I think this is why I've loved you for so long. There really is no group out there that sounds like you. What is that sound? What are you going for?
Well, I think it's certainly evolved over the years. I think that the group has always looked for what else is possible with the human voice. So we started off way back in the day using some of the stomp boxes that you might see, and we starting to use that with our voices. All the way up through now where we've got automated effects happening real time, processing our live voices to make it sound like a smooth guitar or whatever part.
Like when I heard the album, I'm like, yes, this is signature 5 o'clock Shadow. Like, there's nothing else it could be, and I'm trying to figure out what makes 5 o'clock Shadow 5 o'clock Shadow. I know it's a very philosophical question.
Well, I know when we're coming into arrangements, even if it's cover tunes, Caleb will say like, "I heard this song. Do we want to make it sound like a more typical kind of a cappella thing, or do we want to make it sound like a band that happens to be producing everything with our voice?" And this arrangement that we have, like we're here to sort of sound like a band. And to take advantage of those effects. So like we are putting effort into not sounding like a typical a cappella group. And those are choices we're making as we're pulling in songs and things like that. Obviously effects are a lot of fun to play with too. So,
I was going to say the phrase I would use is electric voice.
No, okay.
So there's a cappella, but then there's electrified a cappella, or just electric voice.
So, after our former leader, David Stackhouse, as we call him, Stack,
Powerhouse.
I know Stack very well.
incredible musician. We love him dearly. After he left, having been in this group as long as I had at that moment, like I felt like I was able to pick up on his sort of vibe and his like. This group has always considered itself a band. We don't really talk. We don't call our we are an a cappella group. Absolutely, everything we do live. Like there's nothing pre-recorded. Everything we do happens on the stage. There's no sounds that come before what we're creating in front of you, and we pride ourselves on that. But when we're thinking about our arrangements, when we're thinking about our sound, when we're thinking about our music, it comes from the standpoint of like, for me as the person who does almost all the arranging, it's like, how can we make this song, like this group, sound like a band within this moment? Like sound like a signature rock or like even indie rock at times group. And the idea of using effects that a cappella groups don't use, like distortion or things like that they'll use on albums, which I always find really interesting because you'll have these groups that never, ever, ever use effects live. College groups, professional groups, all the time, they send it to an engineer who adds all these effects. Sounds awesome. But I always found that really interesting because it's not really depicting what they do live. What we do live, it is what we're hearing on the album. We're using the exact same effects on the in our live shows as we're using in our album, and vice versa. So it's one of those things that it's about how we envision the group, how we envision the sound, the sonic palette as it is, and really shaping the music towards that vibe and that energy. yeah, I just think we're a very different a cappella group. I don't think we've ever fit within the mold of your traditional like sing-offy or when the sing-off came, we all talked about auditioning and we were like, you know what, that's just not us. Like we if we can't go out there with our effects and things like that, it's going to feel strange for us. So I think we just decided, that is an awesome thing, but it's not necessarily for us because that's not really our sound. That's not really our vibe.
Judd and John, you're kind of the new guys, sort of.
Uh,
What is
well,
it like to be in one of the most iconic a cappella groups of all time? I mean,
It's great. Actually, Scott and I got in together about 12 years ago,
okay.
and then John is what, 2 years now?
2.5, yeah.
2.5.
The baby.
Yeah. No, it's
Well, I guess I say you're the new because I know everyone else from previous iterations.
Right.
So
No, it's been a great ride for me for the last 12 years.
It's been a quick ride, but it's been an eventful, like, wild ride for how long it's been. And like, it's all fun stuff. I have fun with the guys. They're all in good spirits when it's coming to rehearsal. It's coming to a show in good attitude and like just being there and having a good time. So this was like the very first a cappella group I had found out about, period, when I was like 10 or so. So this is like very full circle. So it's like pretty wild.
that's awesome. Why do you guys think? I mean, your originals are so good. Why do you think a lot of groups don't write original music? I know you asked this question on Facebook.
I didn't actually ask that question. I responded to the thread and was
Oh,
like,
okay.
"No, dude, here's our album." But
Yeah.
I mean, it took us 2.5 years to come up with this album,
about that.
and like Caleb's thinking about this stuff all the time,
Yeah,
and it takes a long time.
I think that it's difficult to write good original music. I really think it is. If you're not used to it, a cappella groups love to cover music, and that's beautiful and that's wonderful. And I think that's part of our sort of culture is like the cool idea of how can we make a song that we heard on the radio all vocal. And I think when you get beyond that, Paul and I had this discussion maybe 5 years ago. We were like, we used to be an originals group that did covers, and now we're a cover group that does originals. Wouldn't it be cool to get back to being an originals group that does covers again? And I think we just made it our goal. Like, let's do this. We sat in a room and I was like, guys, I have a bucket list item for my life. Like, I want to write an album that is like all originals and comes from just us and that no one else has touched before. And everybody seemed on board. So we literally rented a house about a half a mile from the Canadian border, as far away from reality as we could get, so that we had no distractions. And we went with song ideas, and we came back with 13 pieces of songs, which, like, I mean, we were working so hard that weekend. Most of us. Dan wasn't working that hard, but that's...
And I had COVID, so
Yeah, I wasn't even... Judd wasn't there.
But hey,
But yes,
I was coughing a lot.
we just worked really hard, and I think that was what really jump-started this particular album. Once we got out of there, I was like, this is going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind.
And songwriting is a craft, and like anything else, like pottery, like knitting, like whatever, you put time into it, and you learn how to bring something. You take an idea, you build on it, you make iterations of it, and then you build it. You build it like you build anything else. And we have decided collectively over time to just put energy into that, and that's the result. And it didn't happen in 6 months. It took over 2 years.
So you think groups are afraid, or they're just not good at it, or
It's a decision, honestly. Anybody. I don't want to say anybody can be a great songwriter. But what I do want to say is that if you put the energy into it, and you pay attention to the details of the craft, you can come up with something great. And it's a group decision. Like one person, if there's one person that's making all the decisions, that can work. But it's usually like, you know, a lot of songs that, especially the ones that I had anything to do with, it was a collaborative effort. You know, like we bounced ideas off of each other, and it wasn't just like, oh, this is John's song, that's Scott's song, this is Dan's song, this is, you know, we just kind of you it's a give and take.
Yeah.
You just put it together.
I would love for albums like ours to be an inspiration for people to do just that, to take the time. You know, like professional songwriters, they'll write 200 songs in a year, like just trying to come up with music that either they're going to sell or they're going to perform themselves. Like they write a ton of music, sometimes 1 or 2 a day. It's a job. They sit in a room and they do that. You know, writing songs is you know, I am so fortunate to be in a room with 5 other guys that when presenting ideas, it feels like a safe place where I don't feel like anyone's going to sit there and be like, oh, or not tell me the truth. You know, no one here is going to say like, oh, that's really nice, Caleb. They're going to sit there and be like, hey, I really think you have a great idea with the bridge, but the verses are a little weak, and you know, and then from there, you know, the sort of competitive side of me is like, oh man, I got to make that better. You know,
this guy can take some criticism and just roll with it. It's impressive. Because not all 13 of those song snippets were great, or even made it. And I mean, we added 5 more outside of that, so there were 8 ideas that didn't really make it anywhere. And he just rolls with it.
We had been touring with songs that didn't make the album because we just knew they weren't strong enough. You know, these are songs that we've been singing on stage for a couple of years, and we were like, nope, that's not right for this album. It's not strong enough. So, you know, it's something that you need patience for. You need the right songwriter or writers, and I would love to see our art form, you know, just suddenly, you know, everybody's doing original music. And I think that if that happens, I think it's going to bring in a different light to a cappella, and maybe a little bit like a change of the way people view a cappella and the way they see it. You know, less of like a kind of, and I don't mean anything by this, but like a little bit like kitschy. Like here we are, we're doing music with our voices. Isn't that cool? Right. Like let's get beyond that. We are instruments. We create instrumental sound. Let's do really good music all the time and just original, you know, work. And I just think it would be so cool to hear that happen.
Yeah. Do you have any advice? Because you're a group that's you make a project, you do some stuff, and then you kind of go in separate ways, and then you come back and you do another project. Do you have any advice for groups who can't get back together, who, you know, they've dissipated and they want to come back, but they just can't? What advice do you have for them?
You know, it's.
I think if you love it enough, you can't help but do it.
So don't dissipate.
Yeah. So
basically.
just don't. So and like, I think that like every group, like. It works best if there's one person like really leading. Now that leader can sort of define the group a little bit, but like if at least one person is just like charging forward, you know, and helps inspire other people to like come on board and do the thing, you know, week after week, you know, every single week. It's like amazing. This group, we are very good at sending an email out if we have a problem with a rehearsal, and everybody is willing to be flexible. There's no like, well, we can't do that, so let's just skip that. It's like we literally think of every single day of the week, Monday through Thursday, weekends not necessarily unless they're really important before a gig. But it's like, you know, can we make a rehearsal work on those days? Does someone need childcare? You know, like raise your hand if you have kids, right? So it's like, how do we make that effort, you know, together? I think we all just love it, and like there's no doubt that we are going to make the time in our life to be here and do this.
And like today, like I wasn't able to drive for a few days. Dan's driving like an hour out of the way to pick me up and then bring me back after this and then go home. Dan, I really appreciate it. So yeah,
I'll
it's,
send you the Venmo thing.
I appreciate it. So so it's just it's committing to the thing. It also helps that there's only 6 of us, and so one of us missing is a big chunk of the group missing. But it's we're flexible and we also like hanging out too, which helps a lot too, because you saw how many of us have kids and stuff like that going on at home. This is a chunk out of that life, for better or worse.
So big headlines. You guys are headlining NAC
Yes.
5.
Very
That's
excited.
That's a huge get.
Yep.
Caleb and Scott, you're going to be pulling double duty, I assume.
Yes.
I didn't sleep before. I don't think I'm going to sleep now.
No, you don't sleep now at home anyway.
That's
That should be
Yeah.
fun.
Are you going to be running back and forth between the board and the?
That's right. No, thank God we have our own engineer, but I will be doing the showcases in between, and we're still figuring that out. But
Yeah. Are we going to hear any signature 5 o'clock shadow songs? Any oldies but goldies?
We've definitely had that conversation. We are, a little less than 6 months out. We are working towards building that set. We have a couple different nights to work with, and it is possible. That is definitely a possibility for sure.
Yeah. Tribute is always a favorite of mine. My favorite 5 o'clock shadow song is "What's It All About," and I mean not the one on Wonders of the World, the heavily affected one, but the more acoustic one.
yeah,
I just love that song so much, and I love them all, but I love that song so much.
Mark,
Special request.
similar to John, I have a similar experience with John, where 5 o'clock shadow was like the first real a cappella group I saw. I think it might have been like I saw a college one, then I saw 5 o'clock shadow, and the first song that the group performed was "What's It All About," with the guitar effects crescendoing in, and it was incredible. And then I just bothered them for 12 years until I got in the group. So it worked out well. But no, so it was incredible. Yeah.
It's an insane arrangement. I mean, it's so brilliant, and it's influenced me in so many ways. Thank you guys so much. If you'd like, we could play a game. If you've got a couple of seconds.
Sure.
And okay, so I'm gonna get my clock up here. All right, we're gonna play categories. Here's how it works. 5 o'clock shadow will have 45 seconds to name as many songs in the given category as possible. All right, work together. Just shout them out. Don't raise your hands. We'll see how many you can get. Okay.
Oh, it hasn't started yet.
So yeah, no, but you gotta wait.
Sorry, sorry.
I haven't started yet. I'll start it. All right.
Danny's crying. No, sorry.
Okay, here we go. Songs with a number in the title. Go.
Love Potion number 9.
Great one. Great one. 1 is the loneliest number.
99 Luft balloons.
No.
When I'm 64.
Yep.
7.
Oh,
Prince.
Yeah.
Good one.
7 Days by Sting.
8 days a week.
8 days a week. Nice.
29 by 5 o'clock shadow.
Oh,
Hey! 2 of us are the Beatles. That was 2 of us, right?
Yeah, 2 of us.
Just the 2 of us.
Ooh.
Go with it.
3 times a lady.
Hey!
21 Guns.
13. That time. Good
I feel like we
job.
didn't do very well.
That's a very respectable score. Good job. Well, thank you so much. It has been an honor. This is the honor of my lifetime to talk to 5 o'clock.
Mark, thank you so much.
I love you guys so much, and I'm such a big fan. And just thank you for coming out with new stuff. Thank you for being so inspiring, and continue to do what you do, man.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for your excitement and your support and everything. This is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, all right. I'll see you guys. See you guys soon.
All
right.
right.
Sounds
Take it
great.
easy.
See ya.